Where are we going? Welcome to this exclusive podcast produced by Spirit Watch Ministries that will show where life in our darkening times is now turning and how you can avoid the detours of deception through the hope of biblical truth. The Lord Jesus in Matthew 24 warned us over 2 millennia ago and how urgently we need to heed him now. Our host is Pastor Rafael Martinez, a seasoned Northwest Indiana-based minister, intercessor, and counter-cult apologist who will help you discern the journey of change we're all on as the last day of the last days now winds down. For more information, check out our Facebook page and our website at spiritwatch.org. Now, here's Pastor Rafael.
Hello, I'm Rafael Martinez, a minister in the Church of God Cleveland movement, and once again I want to thank you for taking the time to listen into our podcast today called Where Are We Going? It's a podcast we've created where we explore some hard questions about the deceptive and destructive power wielded by cultism and abusive churches all around us. We've also beheld our world's cultural and geopolitical dysfunction so catastrophically in the past few years that it's led us to ask the question about just where we are going as well, because it's a question that so many people have in their lips and minds as well. So this podcast is really one of the services of Spirit Watch Ministries attempting to answer that. It's an outreach of discernment in our deceptive world that has been ongoing since 1993. You can learn more about us at our website, spiritwatch.org, and keep up to date using our Facebook and YouTube links there on the page as well. We're always seeking new audiences, and we'd appreciate the help spreading the word around your internet community about our podcast. We're now found on Spotify, Google, and Amazon podcast channels, and if you're here visiting, thanks so much. Please bookmark us and please come back again. We premiere our podcasts on midnight on Wednesdays and midnight on Saturdays. So we're trying to continue our output of 2 podcasts a week. I wish we had time to do this daily, but we don't. So we're doing what we can, and we're hoping that the effort and that the sharing offer provides a ministry to you as well. Our podcast today features the testimony of Samantha, a survivor of the Gladstone movement located in Ohio, which is essentially a communal cult that has successfully enjoyed a parasitical career, drawing people, resources, and goodwill from far too many unsuspecting churches and ministries for almost 20 years. Led by the quirkily charismatic and pretensive prophetic figure Zach Kaczynski, Gladstone was once a place where the power of love energized a community of people to live and serve God. Sadly, that has all tragically changed as the love of power that Kaczynski and his elders are caught up in now has transformed into an abusive, controlling place. Multiple testimonies exist on this, some of which we've presented to you here in the podcast. Samantha came forward to offer her own insights after 3 years of involvement with the movement. What you're going to hear today is shocking and infuriating, and it should be. No real Christian church is abusively controlled the way Gladstone is. And fair warning, some of what you're about to hear is potentially quite triggering for abuse victims, so be advised. There is no beauty in this account save the truth that Samantha offers it in, and we're glad to offer a space and time here to make her testimony. We want to welcome Samantha to our podcast today, and Samantha, thanks for coming to our virtual studio here at Spirit Watch Ministries, where everything looks great because it's what you wanted and it's because it was in your mind, not mine. So virtual studios can be decorated any way you want to. I've always wanted to develop one, but our budgets are always a little low. But virtual studios are pretty cool. I appreciate having my pet cat up here again with me, and he's just sitting there purring in the corner, and he's been dead 20 years, so the virtual studios are cool. You can do a lot of things there. So thanks for coming. Right? We're having a little fun with this, but thank you for taking the time today to be with us and to share from part of your own story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been really great just to even get connected to you and to listen to your podcast. So I'm excited to get to share too.
Well, thanks, Samantha. I appreciate that. And how do you view the podcast? How are they helping people? I feel like sometimes I hear a lot of people saying that, yeah, that's good, that's great, but how do they specifically help people?
I think specifically what's been encouraging to me, and I hope anybody, if they get to hear it, if they're inside Gladstone or any kind of cult, that they can hear, their friends, the people that are just like them. That's what's spoken to me so big, is that these are the people I know, and I've been through it personally. So I can say, wow, like that is real. That's what I felt. And it can help bring some identity to it. And I'm hopeful that it does that, even for just one person.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we were talking right before we started today, that, in any interview I've done with survivors, we do in such a way that I do strive to let people tell their own story. I only ask enough questions to move the narrative along. I may have a little commentary here and there, but that's the power of these things. These are your words and your story, and I'm grateful that we've had a chance to be able to actually look into that story and be able to look at it from that perspective. Because to me, that's where it all comes down to. That's where the truth of the matter really lies. So how did you get in? So tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, how did you? Where were you at in life when you came across Gladstone, and what was going on in your life that got you involved?
Yep. So I was 20 when I got involved with Gladstone and moved in. I'm now 25. So at the time, I would say I was probably in my lowest point. I was struggling a lot. I was going to college at UC, University of Cincinnati, and I was studying journalism. I was struggling a lot with just depression. I think adulthood was a tough transition for me. So I had a pretty close friend of mine who was going to church there, staying there, but she wasn't fully in yet. And she started bringing me. I had not followed God or Jesus before. I had no really understanding of the Bible. I had never put myself into religion at all. So for me, somebody where I was really low, it seemed like such an incredible thing. And, the Bible and Jesus still are, but she would bring me to church, and I would see a lot of young people having a really good time. And that was something that just really grabbed me, and I wanted to be in it so badly. I just wanted, that's all I thought about after maybe my second visit. I was just totally in. I just wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So they offered that sense of community, of belonging, of there's an energy about it that was just very, very compelling, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was exciting. It was fun. Everybody looked so happy. And again, people my age, a little bit older than me, no one was really much older than 30 for the majority. And they were having so much fun all the time. They were, going out, doing events. I would watch people filled with passion to worship God. And I didn't even understand that yet. What is making them so passionate? Why are they so excited? And the other thing was that the moment I walked through the doors of that church building, the word love bomb really fits. I've never had so many people approach me in one evening, taking an interest in me, taking an interest in my life, wanting to know who I was, what I was going to do. I've never received that. And so that night, I remember it so clear. I had several different women who later down the road became my best friends, who I would live with. And they just pursued me. They wanted to know who I was, and they wanted to know my story. And it was a level of care I just hadn't felt before. I hadn't felt that from my friends at school, and I hadn't really felt that much from my family. So I really wanted that.
Wow. I'm sad to hear that. It's sad to hear that the world and life can be so cold, can be so distant, and put you in a position where you feel starved for that. There's the old classic unpsychologically sophisticated term of the love tank. Everyone has a love tank, and it needs to get filled some way. That's kind of a clumsy way to say it, but it's really just saying human beings, we need that. We need to be around people that have positive regard for us, that care for us. And you just felt that all that intense interaction just seemed so real.
Yep. And I think some of it was real. You know, people have said there are people that are there that are genuinely filled with love and they want to honor God. They're just, they don't have the correct leadership, and it's sad. But that was the first time, I still say it to this day, like, I've never experienced love the way I felt it in community. It was just this unit. We were all together. We were all on the same page, it felt. And so, and I desperately wanted that unity, especially, again, I was 20. I was very young, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And so it seemed like a really good way also to just take a break. Let me just go to this place and work for them. I don't have to worry about my money. I don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Right. It is good to feel secure. I mean, because like you said, it's tough for you, and I think a lot of young men and women that were your age then certainly feel that now. They want to live a life apart, but making that transition from adulthood is extremely difficult. And you find a place to live, work, find friends, do something meaningful with yourself, and seeing all the uncertainties of life all around us. Those are realities that are very daunting, and to young men and women who are understandably quite concerned, even frightened about that kind of security you found really made a connection with you, because it seems so tied into what seemingly was a very biblical sense of community there.
And it was definitely, again, the most vulnerable position I've ever been in my life. I don't think I knew it at the time, because I think for a while I'd felt like I was fighting, but now I can look back and just see how vulnerable and nervous I was just to be anywhere. So just finding people that could just take you in, embrace you exactly as you were. I think part of it at the time when I was first attending, just going to church services, getting to know the people, that was about a 2-month period before I actually moved in. I did not know what moving in would cost.
What year
that
was
wasn't
that,
clear. That wasn't
Samantha?
upfront.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What year was that when you first started this?
Yep, that would have been 2017. It was spring when I started attending. And then I moved in July of 2017.
Okay. And that's when you started. And what were you doing there? I mean, once you got there, let me ask you this. When you're asked, or when you're, whether you're asked or not, what's the draw, other than the security issues? What's the draw of living communally with a bunch of people who apparently are going to be supportive of you? What was behind all the real sense of being drawn to that?
Yeah, I mean, I know not everybody is designed the same way in what they like, but I am very extroverted, and I have a lot of energy, and I can't stand to be alone. If I could never be alone, I wouldn't. And so that was a big part of it. Wow, I can just be with my best friends and live with them. That would be amazing. I never have to deal with the loneliness or anything. I'm always going to have a support system. I'm always going to have people that want to hang out, want to do something. And somebody with a very high energy, high extroverted personality, that was just this is perfect. That's exactly what I want.
And it worked for you. So I think you were there with 3 years, 4 years? 3,
just a little over 3. It would have been 3 years and maybe a month or so. And again, when I first moved in, so when I started attending, I had an iPhone, I had my car, I had my own money, and all of that. And I didn't know yet everything that I was going to have to give up. I knew they lived in common purse. And for me, that didn't raise any flags, maybe because I just didn't have a lot of money. So I just didn't see an issue at the time. But I didn't know, basically once I got there, that's when they shared hey, we're going to take your phone for 30 days and we're going to take your car for 30 days. We're going to take your laptop for 30 days. And they framed it like it would be this isolated time frame, and that basically just focus on God, get away the distractions. And they made it sound like I would get those things back. And for me, that was pretty standard for people that had a history of drug abuse or I mean, I would say that's primarily any kind of substance abuse. They'll take your phone, they'll take your ability to drive, and then you have what they call restrictions. And for me, I don't have those histories to begin with, so I never, and I still don't understand why that's what was put, like that was the frame that was put around me. But I essentially was a Lazarus ministry guest without having to detox. So, after my 30 days passed, I remember asking, when do I get a phone again? When do I get to talk to my family whenever I want? When do I get to have those things that still seem normal and that, to me never seemed like something I actually had to give up to know Jesus? And I remember for a little while, they just kind of left it open-ended, like, we'll talk about that later. We'll revisit that later. And then eventually as time went on, I think I just realized it wasn't going to happen, but I stopped caring. I got, I kind of forgot that I even missed having an iPhone or anything at all. But and I didn't realize it at the time, but that completely took away my ability to talk to my friends or family or see them, as a whole. I could not just go drive to my mom and tell her what was going on or what it was like. I couldn't tell my friends. It gave nobody an opportunity to speak to me like the red flags that they were seeing. And there was pretty immediate red flags. I mean, I was instantly isolated. My friends will say that it felt like I died. I had to delete all of my social media. I just didn't exist to the outside world anymore, is how it appeared to a lot of people. And that was really scary for a lot of people.
Right. But of course, you didn't see it that way because you had this. I mean, and I don't mean this in a mocking way, but you had the stars in your eyes. You felt like this was home. This is where I'm safe. I'm secure. They would never mistreat me. They're here only for my best interest. These are my friends. These are my new friends. These are people I'm living with. So giving up a little bit of that liberty, it didn't matter to you. You were there in a place that was meeting that deeper need of wanting to be around family and that or for people that were like family and your new friends. And but for those on the outside, obviously it's obviously a very concerning thing when you're suddenly cut off from people and unable, as you said, to maybe offer any questions or get a third party's objective viewpoint. You just voluntarily went into that, and so many people in their community have done the exact same thing. They had that same trust, don't they?
Yep. And I'm not sure. I mean, again, the people there are like they're charismatic. They have great personalities. They're attractive. Like it's perfect to draw people in, especially young people who are vulnerable and lost. I think that's why they do target the drug addicted and the mentally ill. I was someone deeply struggling with my mental health, and it seemed like a perfect opportunity to get somebody to join. And I don't think it's happening consciously all the time. I don't think the people that are routine evangelists are thinking like, this person is vulnerable, let me get them. But that's what's happening, and that's what the leadership is leading. They're the ones deciding and guiding where people are going or who should we pursue, what types of people should we pursue. That all comes from the leadership.
Right. So when they do that, when they actually enter into these times of encounter and ministry, there is some concerted effort to look for people who display those characteristics, who display those woundednesses, and then that's how they begin to love on them, so to speak, and start to really show people that hey, we are for real, we really care about you, and then when they do that, though, they of course really seem like to people who are struggling that having been the fulfillment of a dream come true. So in the midst of your love bomb time, when you got to know, how did they find out that you were having, some sort of issues related to your mental challenges? I mean, was that something you conveyed to them, or they picked up on?
So I only conveyed it to very specific individuals, all of which were just the close women. So I had a house pastor named Brianna. She knew about my history with my depression and my struggles. Christy at the time, she was there too, and I shared with her. But I wasn't open to the community. It was those specific individuals And so part of me moving in was that, hey, we're going to keep you in therapy. I was in therapy. I had my own therapist, and they said, yes, we want to keep you in therapy. That's a good thing. And that made me trust them even more.
So they
let
signed
me
off
go to
on you
my
going.
therapist. What was that?
I'm sorry, I meant to ask. So they signed off on you going to get continuing professional therapy, even as you were being drawn into and being assimilated in the community.
Yes, but here was the catch was that they let me see my therapist one more time. And then I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but Brianna brought up to me, like, do you think that she's really a good fit? Do you think that she can, and I've been going to her for years, and I go to her now. She's a really good therapist, but they basically convinced me to start going to David Barr, because he was Christian-based and I needed a Christian-based therapist. And my therapist is just more on the clinical side. She isn't anything to do with any kind of religion. Her practice is just based on her clinical knowledge.
Right.
So I got to see her one more time. And that one time that I got to see her, Brianna had to come with me. I wasn't allowed to go alone. And it felt like I broke up with her almost. It hurt really badly because it wasn't my decision. And she was so confused. She's like, wait, like, I've been seeing you for years. What do you mean? And I just told her I was ready to move on. And I started going to David Barr, and I would continue to see him for at least 2 more years, very regularly.
Explain who David Barr is. Who is he to the community?
Yep. So he is essentially I believe he's the only outside therapist that they'll use. In the 3 years I was there, the first year or so that I was there, we were only using really outside counseling, which was primarily David Barr. They've since trained other people or had them get certified. I think there's at least 2 people, maybe more at this point, that were performing internal counseling. So it's one person is doing it for the women, one was doing it for the men. I think they might have 2 for the women now. So they train their own people.
How do they get training?
I know that one of the women, I know she got a certificate. I don't think she's had any formal college. I know that there's one woman, she's in her program to get her degree in psychiatry. And I believe they're probably going to try to use her for medication purposes. So now they have the counseling side and they have the psychiatric side. They can do both.
Okay.
Once she graduates, they'll have that.
So there's a developed group of counselors within Gladstone who are supposedly meant to help people with their mental health issues, but none of them are degreed?
Not that I know of, no. I'm certain that I'm positive actually that they don't have a degree. Maybe I only believe one of them is certified, but maybe that's changed since I left. It's been about 2 years, but at the time only one of them had like a certificate. She was taking some classes. It wasn't any kind of formal training. And nevertheless, we're not meant to be a therapist to our close friends and family. That takes away the point of therapy. It's supposed to be an outside source that can speak into your life without knowing your life, without being in it. That's the whole point, is that it's somebody who can't be impacted, who can't go and tell your mom, who, they have to be a trustworthy source that is independent of your life. It's not appropriate to have any outside relationship with your therapist. Right,
exactly. It's a principle of objectivity. And boundaries, basically. Anybody in the counseling. I mean, I'm not a therapist, and we discussed that in our past podcast with Naomi of Being Bold Ministries. Now she is licensed, and she has the ability to offer professional therapy. I don't. I provide biblical counseling and pastoral care. But there's one principle overriding all of that, is that the very thing we're talking about. You stand apart from people. You come alongside them to provide pastoral care, soul care, as it was called at one time, a long time ago. You come alongside to help people, but at the same time, at the end of the day, whatever is said in a room. My office is set up and can be a place where people can get counseled. But at the end of the day, what goes on in this room stays in this room. And when I leave my office, I close the door and walk away. It doesn't affect my life. It's not involved. It's not a part of my life at all. There's an objectivity in counseling that one should have. And I would hope David Barr would have understood that, but apparently from what I'm hearing from all accounts, and yours is just another one, is that that's not what the case was at all, was it?
Not at all. And so every single appointment I went to, I had to have somebody with me, and it was always someone in leadership. So when I lived at a house called The Branch, all of the houses have different names. I lived at a house called The Branch, and my house pastor there, she would go with me. And then after about a year and a half, I was moved to a new house called the Magdalene, and my house pastor there would go with me. So I always had one of those two with me. And I can tell you genuinely, I don't recall ever signing a medical release. I don't recall ever signing any kind of paperwork saying legally that they can have access to being in my therapy. And anytime I'd ever had anyone else come with me to therapy, in the past I had maybe my mom attend a session or maybe a partner. And we always had to sign paperwork stating that they were allowed to be in that appointment. And I don't recall ever signing anything to allow them in my appointments. It was just assumed off the bat, like, we're coming with you.
And he never said anything.
No, nope. He seemed very overall supportive of the community. I wouldn't say my time in his counseling was necessarily bad in the sense of therapy. Like, he helped me in certain things, but it was never what it could have been. If I had had time to, I had really severe anxiety and community because of just the structure, the way that you feel like you were constantly doing something wrong. And I never had the ability to openly talk about those things. And I couldn't because my leadership was with me. I can't speak against leadership. Mm-hmm. You can't go against leadership.
Yeah.
There's no room for that there.
Right. So in the course of your time, and I want to be sensitive to this, but I don't want you to say anything you don't feel sensitive in sharing or comfortable in sharing. In the course of your conversations with David Barr as a therapist, a supposedly professional therapist, he had people there listening in on everything you say, and I really don't see how you could feel free to be yourself before people that could have been part of the problem.
You really can't. I remember very distinctly, I always had to have my eyes shut during his sessions. It felt like that was the only way I could really feel like I was actually in therapy, which sounds kind of weird, but it's the only way I could shut out what was around me. Is that I didn't even want a male therapist. I have a history of trauma with sexual abuse. I did not want a male therapist, and that wasn't an option for me. So it was hard for me to even look at him and see that it was a man telling me, because just my history, that it was triggering for me. It was hard. Yeah. There's no way to really be totally candid in yourself when you have your roommates with you, your leadership, people that are in power over you, especially because I know everything that I've ever shared in that office was reported back to the elders.
Yeah. And how did you know that?
I don't think at first I knew, and then eventually with different conversations, they just knew things about me that I'd never shared. It wasn't a surprise to them when I shared that I was sexually abused. There was no surprise to that. They already knew. I don't think I was ever explicitly told, yeah, we tell everything to to the elders. But there was at one point I had a medication change, and this is when I realized things were not fully what I thought. I had to fill out a mood chart, which I didn't mind doing. I was having a medicine change and they wanted to track it, but I had to send all of my medication changes and all of my mood charts directly to Zach, who was not really involved in my personal life and community. He was an elder. I knew him. We talked a lot. He was in the church building. I was in the church building, but he wasn't involved in my direct life. I never shared anything with him. I wouldn't go to him for counsel, at least not often, if ever.
Well, why did all this personal information needed to be routed through him? Did you ever? I mean, did you ever ask that question? Or
I never asked.
It was just assumed to be a norm, was it?
Yeah, I never asked. I think the culture there is very obedient, and it's almost just at that point. I just think that Zach. It's assumed that Zach gets to know. Just the way the culture is set up, you just kind of feel it, and you know that he knows everything about everybody.
Yeah, because he reads everybody's psychological profiles and reports.
Yep.
Incredible. And if he's reading them, it's a bet that other people's are as well. I mean, and that's what you've been sharing. People knew things about you. I mean, I would find it extremely upsetting to know that a coworker found out that I had a problem, an emotional problem or a personal struggle, and they just brought it up while I was sitting around talking, and just bring it very, very loosely. That would be extremely violating to me personally. But that's actually the way it is at that place at Gladstone, where people, from what I understand, who are counseled by David Barr and others, that they are fully expected to just become an open book and someone that can be looked on and as someone who has issues that we're going to be shepherding them through. I mean, there was a moment in which I think you were sharing with Zach about your struggles in the area, and then there was a moment in which I think he brought that very crystal clear to you at that point. Do you care to comment on that?
I don't know if I have much to say on it. I can say in the beginning of me being there, I had, and others have said the same that I've talked to that are now out. When I first encountered Zach, I can't describe it other than I had an icky feeling about him. He made me uncomfortable. I didn't trust him. I didn't want to talk to him. And I don't know when that changed, and I wish I could. I have no idea what changed me. But at some point, I thought he was the greatest thing in the world. He convinced me. I started to see just his personality, and I loved it. And I just trusted him. So I think there was a lot of things. Even at the time, I saw oh, Zach knows everything. And I don't even know if at the time I was super alarmed by it. I just trusted him so deeply.
Right. He seemed to care about everybody. He seemed to care about you, and I think he shared enough with you about and others about things that he just made everybody seem like that he was right there with them. He understood them.
Yep. He always made it seem like if you needed, his office was right there. I know a lot of different women would go to him for counsel. I didn't often. I can remember maybe one time where I was really frustrated with somebody. And he very candidly said, yeah, they are those things. They are really difficult. They're a problem, and you just need to pray for them. And just kind of, and I don't even know if that was appropriate. I think that he has a lot of knowledge, and it's just sad he uses it whenever he wants to. He can use it to gossip if he wants to, but if he's doing it, it doesn't seem so wrong. There's things that he would say at times, where I knew if I did it, it would be wrong. I could have gotten rebuked or corrected, but if he did it, it was somehow acceptable. Yeah. Even down to cussing, Yeah. Community is a very, just very sheltered and protected. There's not cursing. There's not profanity. There's not inappropriate movies. It's very, clean in that way. So I hear Zach say a cuss word, and I'm like, wow, he just said a cuss word. I can't do that. I'm not allowed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just, again, part of the personal mannerisms that seem to be so endearing to people, that, he's seemingly to be this very, very wise, beneficial young man with so much wisdom, and yet at the same time, he puts off this aura of absolute control and danger. Even he's sweet, he's charismatic. I think that's what you share with me. And then he's also kind of quirky, and there's this winsomeness about him that makes people just want, gotta really, settle in with him and get to really tolerate him And because he has this quirky kind of attitude, people tend to round the sharp edges off of him, don't they?
Yep. And I know for the women, I don't know if it was like this for the men at all. In the women's culture, there was very much a desire to be known by Zach and to be loved by him. So, there were times I had a roommate, and I really think she worshiped Zach more than God at times, and that was sad, but like she wanted his approval that deeply, and that's not really her fault. That's because of the way he is. She wanted it so deeply, though. And I think a lot of women craved his attention, even though it wasn't romantic, it wasn't sexual, he was celibate, it wasn't like that, but we just wanted his approval. We wanted to know we were doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted Zach to tell us that. We wanted the elders to come to us and tell us that they've seen us grow. Yeah. And that's where I found my value, and I know I did. I found my value so deeply. And that was part of me leaving. I realized I wasn't there for God anymore. I felt so disconnected from God at the time. And I knew I wanted to be able to live on my own eventually. I didn't think I needed to be there anymore. But I didn't want to give up going to church. I didn't want to give up my relationships. I wanted those things still.
Right.
So
you still definitely believed in the community enough to actually be a very active part of its outreach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The things I saw in community, I just thought were beautiful and great. And again, some of them are, but you have to know that there's a corruption behind it. There's an evilness behind it. And Zach, kind of like you said, I know that there was one episode where Christy spoke and said that he was like Jesus on stage. And I've never heard something more true. Like he is radiant on stage. He knows how to speak, and you love him. You watch him talk about God and Jesus, the Bible, even talking about the end times and the new age. It's beautiful to watch him. And that makes it even scarier. He's just that manipulative.
Yeah. And in a place where there are a lot of outcasts and broken people seeking significance, seeking approval, Zach and the elders, they essentially assume father figures. They become the confessors. They become the most significant individual in their life beyond even their parents. And you seek their approval, and you seek their guidance. That's what I'm hearing, and that sounds to me what you experienced.
Absolutely. And even more so, we're so many people there, they're not speaking to their parents anymore, their families, either because they are divorced and remarried, or they're against the community, or maybe they're not believers. There's, several reasons. And so even more, you find that in the people around you. Yeah. I didn't see my family much. So then my mother became somebody different. It became my spiritual mother, or my sisters, my brother and sisters in Christ. And it almost makes you feel like you don't really even want your family anymore, which is even scarier, because that's not thoughts that came from me. It's thoughts that were put in me. I was isolated, and that was something that I was groomed into. It wasn't something that would have been natural to me to not talk to my sisters and my mom.
Right. It became just an outgrowth of what your devotion was turned toward, and that was towards Zach and the community.
Yep. And they do it, for me and several others that I saw, it's very incremental. They don't do everything at once. They ease you into that. And eventually you just don't even realize that I haven't seen my mom in 6 months. I haven't talked to my sisters. I haven't done that at all. And I don't even realize it, because they keep you so busy. You are exhausted all the time. It is exhausting to be there. Yeah. But there's there's not a lot of rest, actually, which even on Sundays, which was considered communities like day of rest, we go to church and we just do restful things. Even that, there was still always like a level of anxiety on those restful days. Like, am I allowed to take a nap? Is it okay if I don't, go hang out with this person? Can I do something for myself? And everything that ever felt like it was for yourself felt like that was wrong.
Yeah. So thinking about yourself, thinking about your own needs really was something that was part of the standards within Gladstone that were deemed to be showing how spiritually questionable you could be. if you brought anything up about yourself or your needs,
Mm-hmm.
or just your own desires, sometimes just your own opinions, you knew better than to say anything about them, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not something, again, it's not really spoken, but when you come in, you see the culture, and there's a lot of observing and watching and learning. I remember, like, I had a lot of times at dinner, the things we would try to talk about, if it wasn't, just, I don't know how to explain it, explicitly within these parameters of what was okay, it was considered inappropriate, even if it was something very normal. Like, it's a very, I don't know the right word for it, but extremist. It's just very extremist. And when you're with a group of people that are mentally ill, vulnerable, broken, those are the people that need their needs met more than anything, and they need to know that they're safe to voice those things.
Right.
And God wants to meet our needs, and He wants those things for us. He doesn't want us to deny in a way. The point of denial isn't just for denial. There's reason, and there's good biblical reason for self-denial at times, but it's not just to suffer for no reason. And I think community has a lot of suffering for no reason other than just to say that we did. And that's what the salvation is based upon.
Yeah.
It's based upon your obedience to your elders. It's based upon how quickly you are to rebuke and correct each other. And it's just it's not a place to grow out of your mental illness or to grow from that. It only condemns it more and pressures you down more.
Right.
I remember there's one girl I think she's still there. She's been there since probably the beginning, and she has some mental illness struggles. And I remember a lot of people relationally had a hard time with her, and just relationally, it wasn't anything. I don't think it was a sin issue. I think it was just personalities didn't always mix, and that's okay. And Zach rebuked her for 5 hours straight in front of me with my housemates, telling her she was evil, telling her she was disobedient, telling her, like, just really cruel things. And I'm not kidding. It was 5 hours of a conversation.
What did
just
she
sitting
do?
there watching her cry. She just cried. She did not understand. I don't believe he tried to make her understand.
What set him off on something like that kind of tirade? What was the precipitating event?
I'm trying to remember. I know that, I think it came down to an obedience thing from what I remember. It was an obedience thing to the house leadership. I think there was something she just didn't think she should have to do. I don't think it was a big deal from what I remember. Like, I remember feeling alarmed, looking at Zach, like, what? This is a really strong reaction. And I remember that day I thought to myself, I will never do anything that will give him reason to speak to me that way. I will be so good. Yeah. I will behave. Like, it didn't make me want to leave. It made me more scared.
Yeah.
And she cried, and she just cried and cried. And I remember it took her a few days. She was kind of silent. She was one of my roommates. And after a few days, she sent us all an email, and she repented for whatever she quote unquote did wrong. And I just can't see any reason to ever sit there for 5 hours and tell someone who has the Holy Spirit, has the love of God, and tell them that they're evil. I don't think that that's godly. I think that is cruel. It was heartbreaking to watch her. And she has a lot of mental illness herself. And so it only tore her down more. It only added to the anxiety. It only made her doubt herself more instead of building her up.
And this is a public admonition he gave.
Yep, it was in front of me, and I think there was probably 6 or 7 of us living in the house that time. It was all of our housemates and Zach.
Okay. So he actually came and paid a visit to your house and actually went ahead and for 5 hours verbally pistol whipped this woman. Yes.
Wow. She didn't say much from what I remember. She just took it. Her face, you could tell she was hurting. I think you could tell she was also angry, but she didn't know what to do with it. But she just took it and just cried. Okay. And that was the longest one of those talks that I'd been a part of, but I wouldn't say that was totally uncommon, those really harsh rebukes. Zach and again, like, as time went on, I saw more of him and more of his control. I remember going on a trip. We went to the Bible Museum. It was about 15 of us. And I was one of those people that got to go, and Zach went, and Zach goes on every trip, to every country, every place he gets to go. And I remember it's something so small. Me and one of the guys, we went to go get a Mountain Dew out of the fridge. And community has a really strict culture with food too. Like you can't, if you drink 2 sodas in a day, suddenly you're idolizing soda. Like it's very sensitive to those things. So we and him went to go get a soda, and I think it was kind of later in the evening, and Zach looked at us both and said, "No, put it back." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Put it back right now." And I looked at the other guy, his name was Josh, and he like kind of said like, "Okay." And we both put him back in the fridge. And I remember I was shaking. I didn't understand like what I'd done wrong. And that's not a sin issue. That's a soda. So that just showed like, that was just one small moment. I remember the next day on that same trip, it was kind of chilly outside, but I run hot. So I didn't want to wear a jacket. And Zach told me I had to wear a jacket. And I was like, "Oh, I'm not cold though. I'm okay." Like, "Oh no, I'm fine." He's like, "Go put a jacket on right now. Go back inside." And I had to go do it. And I had no choice in the matter. And it was just bizarre. I'd never been like, it felt like just like abusive father, I think is kind of the energy it gave me.
Yeah.
That's like how it felt. And I'm like, what in the world is happening? Like I just never had that interaction with him. And that would have been in 2019. So I'd been there a couple years at that point.
Right. 2019. Wow. So you started seeing all these things, and there's a point at which you accepted them as norms. Mm-hmm. You accepted these extreme behaviors, these violations of privacy, this sort of activity as just part of what you should do to be a Christian, to be part of a community. And I think as you said, there's a powerful motivation to make sure you fit in to the group, because these were the people who these people you were living among, who were your new friends, who were your new family. They were living by them. It was unquestioned among them. It was just second nature to them to just go along with the flow and accept some of these things that were standing apart individually. They're all outrageous. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
It's
Yep, and it's weird methods of control too, and I think it goes so under the radar with a lot of people that they don't even realize it because we're so used to it. And again, there's a lot of like the elders they have great personalities, so you want to please them, you want to impress them. I think some other concerns I'd had, because I had several times throughout my 3 years there where I felt pushed over the edge and I wanted to leave. But the way I wanted to leave felt so like I felt enraged, and I would basically just convince myself like, no, I shouldn't leave in rage. That's not right. Like I need to work through my emotions and maybe I'll feel differently. Yeah. And every time I would convince myself out of it. I remember there's 2 instances where I had my house pastor at the Magdalene, and she shared something with me, correcting me. And I told her, I said, I don't think this is a sin issue. I think that you're just annoyed with me, actually. And it was the first time I'd spoken up like that against her, but like it wasn't a sin issue. She was bothered by the way I did something. And I was like, I just think you're bothered by the way I did that, but I don't think I've sinned. And she sent me downstairs to we had a prayer closet. And she said, you can go down to the prayer closet and you can stay there until you're ready to be obedient. And I had to go I was down there for over an hour, just crying, and I was shaking, and I was so angry. And then that was the first time I had a 2-hour panic attack that night. I went back upstairs to go talk to them, and I wasn't going to, I knew, I was like, I'm not going to repent because I don't think I've done anything, but I'm going to try to talk about it. And the moment I tried to open my mouth, I had a panic attack. And it went on for between an hour, 2 hours, and they didn't even know what to do. And that's just how scared I was. That's how scared I was to speak my mind and speak up against what I thought was right and wrong. It caused me to have a panic attack the first time I tried to do it. And then another situation, that I can recall and this is just kind of general different experiences I had. I think I shared this with you when we first began talking, but I had a boss, and I was on the only team within the church that was co-ed, both genders. That was hard for me because I really liked the female discipleship. I wanted to be discipled by my friends. I wanted that relationship. That's who I had fun with. That's who I felt like I could grow with. So they assigned my boss to be a man who is a registered sex offender, who in his story, he raped his own stepdaughter. And my sexual abuse history, I had sexual abuse from my stepfather. And that was so triggering for me. And I had to see him every day, all day. I had to be with him every day, all day. And it was so confusing to me because community, the way it's structured, you can't be alone with another man. You can't go on a car ride. You know, if it was raining and if a guy saw me walking in the rain and he wanted to drive me home, they wouldn't. That would be inappropriate. It's not acceptable. It's black and white like that. I was allowed to be alone with John anytime. I could be alone with him. They would have me take him to the grocery store because he didn't have a license and I did. So they would have me drive him to the grocery store, which seems normal, but it was so uncomfortable because that was the one situation I didn't want to be in, but that was the one situation I had to be in.
Yeah.
I told them, I voiced it. I would go to the elders. I would go to two of the elders specifically that were in mine and John's life. And I'm like, hey, I'm uncomfortable. This is triggering. And instead of saying, oh, let's take you out of a triggering situation, it was, you need to work through that with God. John, he's a good man. He's an older man. You need to respect him because he's older. You need to respect him because he's your boss. And that
he's a sex offender.
He's a sex offender. He's a registered sex offender. Yeah. And that's, you know, there's forgiveness in Christ, but that doesn't mean we need to be unsafe. And absolutely. I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
I didn't feel safe. There are children at that church. He wasn't allowed to interact with them much, but I don't know the legalities at all, but I didn't feel safe. He made me uncomfortable. He would send me love songs at night, like country love songs. I didn't have a phone for 2 years, but I had an iPod Touch that had the iMessage app on it, and I could use that a little bit, only with community members though. And he would send me, from Apple Music, he would send me love songs about country music love songs, which made me uncomfortable. He would send me texts at midnight, which wasn't appropriate in general, so I don't know why he was allowed to. I remember once I did something that he was really proud of me. I cooked something really well, I think, and he grabbed my face and he kissed me on the forehead. And I just remember it was such a wet kiss, and it was so uncomfortable. It was the most uncomfortable I'd been. And I went and I shared it with my house pastor, and she was concerned. And she went to one of the elders. They didn't do anything about it. And even she was concerned. She's like, that's weird. That's not comfortable. And anybody that's at least left will tell you, like, the relationship that was between me and John was inappropriate, and it was weird, and it wasn't normal.
But it was publicly seen. It was well
publicly
known.
Seen.
Everyone knew.
Yes.
I mean, in that kind of place, like Gladstone, I don't imagine people sit on things. They see people doing things. And if they see people doing things that, you know, are questionable, I mean, it'll be at the very least noticed.
Absolutely.
So you had this guy here running around all over the place. You're taking him to grocery stores and being alone, and he's intermingling with you in such a way that is clearly inappropriate and beyond the boundaries. And you're telling me also that he didn't interact with children much, but he did at some point have access to them, and which he could have.
Yes. I mean, he would attend church services. Children would be at church. They'd come to lunch every day. The homeschool came to lunch every day. He would serve lunch every day to them. He was definitely had access to children every day, even if he was never one-on-one or alone with them. In fact, we would do certain classes with the kids, and he would be a part of that too. So me and him leading a class with the kids, teaching them how to properly wash dishes, how to sanitize counters, how to cook a basic meal, you know, trying to teach them how to serve each other and serve their families and friends, and And that was, at the time I remember thinking it, like wondering, is this okay? But I never asked.
Yeah. It just goes to show you just how incredibly authoritarian a movement can be, and deem that the rules and the regulations of the outside world just don't apply there. I mean, you mentioned the fact a moment ago that you said that you should be forgiving and you should be tolerant. Was that ever something that came up in your discussions with him about John, about who he was?
Yeah. Every time they would. I remember at least a couple times I was accused of just bringing up his past and not being forgiving of his past. And, that was a conversation every time. I was the issue. It was me. It wasn't that John was doing anything inappropriate. It's that I can't forgive him for what he did, or that I'm projecting my trauma onto him. He's never done anything to me, and while everything that happened might, from the scope of things seem small, as someone who's a survivor, who's, somebody that's been a victim, that it's not okay. And it's not safe, and it's not even admirable that they don't want to take care of each other correctly. The elders would rather sweep it under the rug, pretend it's not happening, than provide real care for the women there.
Yeah. Even though offenders are not to be near schools or children, apparently that's a rule that doesn't matter in the world of Gladstone.
Exactly. They care more about covering it up, I think, than they do about the actual children. If something ever happens to any of those kids, that is on them. That's blood on their hands, and that's heartbreaking to think about.
Was he the only sex offender there, or were there other people there who you might suspect might have gone in his direction?
He's the only one I know of. However, it would be surprising if he was the only one at all. I could say that there's probably a lot of people that have a sin of potential pedophilia, because there's a lot of men coming from Pure Life Ministries, and some of them, the sin issue would have been homosexuality or just sex in general. But I do know that ministry caters to people that sin and are pedophiles or have those desires, even if they've never acted on them. Maybe they're not registered,
right.
But it would be really hard to believe that none of them had that struggle, because we had so many men from Pure Life coming in and out.
And Pure Life graduates that came out were obviously men that perhaps very much were involved with that, and it was not knowledge of who did what.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, you just knew they were from Pure Life, and they already had the taint on them, but we forgave them, and it's perfectly fine for them to mingle among in the way they have. That's incredible.
Exactly.
It says a lot about the depth to which Gladstone will gladly confer to people who probably shouldn't even be there a room in trying to be inclusive. They're trying to be Christian. They're trying to be forgiving. Yet at the same time, they won't respect the laws about what is really serious wisdom in protecting people from one another. Sometimes what they do. Wow. Unreal.
And what's even more interesting, so the day that I chose to leave, I actually wasn't trying to leave that day. I basically asked Zach if I could put in my 2 weeks with the food ministry, and asked if I could basically start working to move out. And that conversation, pretty similar to some of the other stories, he told me I was evil, cruel, very much flipped the switch on me. They told me that day that I was going to be disfellowshipped, that nobody was going to be reaching out to me, that I was out of the family, which that was really painful, but funny enough. So nobody has spoken to me. Nobody has responded to me except John. He would write my emails. He got my cell phone number and would reach out to me on my phone. And even most recently, he's reached out to me as soon as July. And they don't know that he's doing that. And so I've since, somebody has been an advocate and reached out to the community and said he needs to stop reaching out to her, because that's the one person I don't want to hear from. And he's the only person that, weirdly enough, is willing to break that rule that we can't talk to Samantha. But he's willing to.
Yeah. Like I said, it goes without saying within cults that like I said, rules are made to be followed by those who really don't count, those who really aren't in positions of leadership, whereas rules under leaders are meant to be broken and meant to be ignored because they rise above them. They feel like that in many instances that the rules don't apply to them whatsoever when it comes to their own activity. It's the classic distinction between the ordinary person at the bottom of the hierarchy and those at the top of the food chain. They enjoy a privilege and a place of responsibility and are accorded honors that the other people wouldn't. And so I'm so sorry you had to deal with all this. What led you up to finally making that? I mean, you said that's the day you left, but what was leading you? What was the one thing that really made you really think, I just need to get out of here?
Yeah, so actually, yep, the day before that, so I left, I think so I left on a Monday. That's the Saturday before that. My sister Katie had reached out to me and basically said like, hey, my best friend Morgan's getting married. Would you want to come out tonight, get dinner, hang out with us? You haven't seen her in years. And that was just her attempt at trying to spend time with me. And I knew I wasn't going to be allowed to do that. And for whatever reason that day, I said, I want to go. So I lied to my leadership and told them, well, I wouldn't say I fully lied. I told them I was going to get dinner with my sister. I didn't include that it was going to be with her friends because I knew that would draw the line. They would have been fine with me going to a one-on-one dinner because that could be an evangelism opportunity. But if I was just trying to have a social event with anyone outside of the community, that was not okay. So I didn't include that. I knew that her friends would be there, and I went out to dinner. I got to see the people that I hadn't seen in years, people that were my friends that I was close to. I had so much fun. And when I left at the end of the night, I was like, I didn't do any of the things that they've always told me I would do. They always accused me of going back into this extreme party lifestyle that I had in college. I didn't, and not even that drinking is a sin, but for the way community was with me, any kind of drinking was an issue with me. They wouldn't let me, I couldn't have a glass of wine, even though I've never been an alcoholic, but I wasn't allowed. And I didn't even have a drink. I didn't do any of the things they told me that would happen. It wasn't catastrophic. It wasn't scary. I still felt close to God. And I got to see my friends. And so I'm like, that felt more normal. That feels more like a life I could have. I could still go to church. I can have a relationship with God, and I can have a relationship with these other people. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I went home that night, and I couldn't get it out of my head. I just knew, I was like, I really loved seeing my sister. I loved being able to I felt free. That was the first time I felt myself in so long. And the next day I called my mom. I was like, hey, I think I want to come home, but I'm still kind of working it out right now. And inside, she was so excited. She was screaming. She was screaming with joy because she knew that I was in a cult, but I wasn't ready to face it. But externally, she's like, okay, yeah, just let me know what you need. And, it's okay either way, trying to just play it neutral. But inside she was like, oh my goodness, I cannot wait to go pick up my daughter. Couldn't be soon enough. And I told her I thought it would be probably another 2 weeks before I would actually move out. The next day is when I sat down with Zach, and that's when he, again, flipped the switch on me. I asked if I could still come to church. I asked if I could still be discipled. I wanted to still continue a relationship. I just wanted to have somewhat more of what I would call a normal life. I wanted the freedom to have a relationship if I wanted one. I wanted to be able to do things that aren't against, God necessarily. And, they won't let anybody get married there. Nobody can get married, and marriage is from God. So, all of those things, it made me want to go. And Zach made me leave that night. He told me to pack my bag. He told me that I was choosing myself over Jesus, and that I was selfish, that I was evil, and that I would go to hell. And I remember he said, do you know that you're going to have eternal, how did he word it? Eternal fire, eternal pain. That's how he worded it. And I just looked at him. I was crying. I was so confused. I don't know exactly what I said. I think I might have said, if that's what you think this is, I guess I can just accept it. And he was like, okay, you can tell all of your housemates then. You can tell them that you were choosing yourself over Jesus. And he called all my housemates and called them home that night. And I just said exactly that. I said, yeah, I guess I'm choosing myself over Jesus. I want to go home. And they all cried and I cried, and it was really painful. I had nothing. I didn't have money. I didn't have a car. The phone I had was a flip phone that they gave me. And they took it back. So I got to call my mom, and that was it. And luckily she doesn't live far away, and she's very kind and loving. So she immediately came to get me. But I had nothing to come home to. And that was really painful. And I didn't have the friends that I just spent the last 3 years with. And I didn't know if I was going to have any friends to come home to. Those weren't my friends anymore. They didn't talk to me anymore. I didn't talk to them anymore. There was no relationship. So, I was really lucky in the sense that once I got home, got comfortable, I remember I slept in my mom's bed the first few nights with her. I was so scared. The drive home, I was crying, begging, I was praying out loud, begging God to not kill us in a car accident, and that I was sorry for leaving community. And that was so painful. My mom was rubbing my leg, and she's like, sweetie, nothing's going to happen. Okay. God is not going to kill you for this. And I really believed that. And it took about 2 weeks for me to stop being afraid of dying. And that's when I started to see, like, okay, nothing's happening to me. Maybe God's not going to condemn me like Zach said. Maybe that's not real. And that's when I started realizing more of the cult thoughts. The first 2 weeks, it was like, oh, wow, I'm in sin and I don't know how to get out of it. And now I can't even go back because they won't take me. And then after that first 2 weeks, I started having some clarity. I was able to get a hold of my therapist, that I'd been seeing before, and she very quickly got me on her schedule. And that was kind of where I was able to start processing actually what happened. And that 3 years there felt so fast. It just felt like I got blindsided. It happened so fast and I didn't even realize it. It just happened. I was like, wow, I'm turning 24. Like, it just felt like my life just kind of like took a pause and then picked back up. It's very strange feeling going there and then coming back into the real world.
Yeah. But you knew you needed to leave, and you knew that now was the time. And in any case, they'd kicked you out. They expelled you. And so the choice was made once again for you that you were unworthy. Mm-hmm. And of course, that was, you were warned in the most drastic of theological terms that you're this child of Satan, bent for hell, who's turning her back on the only true community on the earth, and all kinds of other bogus stuff. And how many of the friends that you cared about, that you were there for, how many of them really do you think really believed that about you? Because you wanted to go home, that suddenly that made you a monster. Do you think any of them really still labor with that struggle? Did any of them maybe say to you, maybe, hey, I wish I could go home too? Or, I mean, what was that moment like? I don't want to belabor the point, but that point of relationship that was so valuable, so much what you treasured, did they relate to you in any way, shape, or form?
I know I'd like to believe there's at least a few people that are there that know me and know that wouldn't be true. I had one friend that is still there who we had private conversations. We both struggled with wanting to leave at times. And I remember a few weeks before I left, she wanted to leave. And I said, I can't even tell you not to, because I really don't know what's right anymore. Sometimes I want to leave too, and I'm not going to tell you not to think that way. I don't have the answer. So I think that there's at least a couple people, but I think overall, the people that weren't, my closest friends, they probably believe it. They probably believe I just went back to my old life of just sin and hatefulness and whatever they may think about me. But I've had one friend that has since left, and I remember she called me and we just talked about it. She's like, when I saw the email that you left, like I just was so confused. I didn't even understand. And that was so healing for me to get to like talk to her, because she'd been there longer than me, and she left, and she's like, and we got to reconnect, and we're still friends, and we text pretty often. We've seen each other a few times, and that's really sweet to get to still have that. I have that friendship that she understands what it was in there, and she understands what it's like to not be there now, and to have a life where you still love God and you still can pursue certain things. You can use your talents. You can have a personality. They strip you of all of that there. They strip you of your individualism. They strip you of any ability to thrive on your own. They prevent people from going to college and getting degrees and good careers that they want, that they're capable of having, that maybe God would have really built a way for them in that. There's people that love to do art, and they can't do art because they need to do work for the kingdom. And there's just things that it's too far. It's not from God. God doesn't take away the things that we love. He gives us talent. He gives us skill. He gives us hobbies and joy. He gives us things to love being on earth.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So where are you at now? So I take it you've embraced that and understood that you're not so bad after all. You're a warm, intelligent person who has a lot to give to the world and has gifts. Where are you at with it now? I know you said you've been going back to therapy, which is great. I'm glad to hear that. Mm-hmm. What do you think your next step should be? Do you think you maybe go back to school or something? I mean,
Yeah, I've thought about it. So I was really lucky. I actually have a pretty nice job. I work in a clinical lab, and it's gone really well for me. I've been promoted a couple times. I have a pretty strong work ethic, which has helped me a lot to, I didn't get to finish my degree at UC the way I originally planned, but I was still able to find work pretty quickly and make money. I had to live with my mom for about a year, and then I was able to get my own place. So now I've thought about school. I've thought about finishing my journalism degree. I'd still like to, but I think that that's one place I still struggle. I still have that voice in my head that just tells me I shouldn't. And that's something I think with time I'll figure the answer to, but I'm happy, and that's been really sweet.
Yeah.
I'm happy, and I've had more peace than I've ever had in my life. And I remember hearing God's voice telling me, you're okay. I've got you. And I remember him telling me that, especially like when I would lay in bed at night by myself at my mom's house. And I would just hear his voice, and I found so much comfort in that time.
Yeah. Because he's real. He is someone that will speak. God never stops speaking. I think, and that's the tragic thing that so many people fail to realize is that if a cult leader can hear from God, then there's no reason for you to believe you can't either. God has no shortage of ways of speaking to us. And, but you're just successfully persuaded to believe that they're the only ones who can hear from God, and they hear the best from God. So therefore they should be able at that point, be able to go ahead and at that point, no one to tell you how to live. And I'm so glad to hear that you've made that decision to move beyond all that. So,
yeah.
And it's a daily process, isn't it?
It is. I still get a lot of anxiety. I have pretty routine panic attacks still because of just the residual effects of being there. And, luckily I have a lot of ways that I can cope with those things, and I'm aware of it now. But it's still hard. I still am, I would say, daily affected by my life at Gladstone. And I don't know if it'll ever fully, it's a part of who I am now. It's a part of who I was and who I am, and I have to carry that in some ways, but I'm still excited to keep unraveling my own personality again, because again, they squashed that, and I'm still it feels like I'm just scratching the surface of finding myself and finding my purpose in life, my purpose with God. And it's been really sweet to know that it's not going to just be isolated to my life there forever, that I can do a lot I could be happy.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah. And it's truly God's will for that. I believe in the scriptures tell us that, we certainly can expect that of him. I mean, God is someone that does care for us, and it's unfortunately when men get involved that the mess begins to really start bogging you down. One of the things that I love to share, and as I'm wrapping it up, I'm just going to read a verse of scripture that I think really speaks to the experience that people have in Gladstone and other places like that, the Xenos and Remnant Fellowship, and all the other cults of people that we've worked with over the years. Every one of them have experienced the same thing, this exact same moment of discord and terror that we read in scripture that God really definitely hates to see inflicted in his name. He says in Ezekiel chapter 34, the word of the Lord came to me saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, thus says the Lord God to the shepherds, woe to the shepherds of Israel who feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? You eat the fat, you clothe yourselves with the wool, you slaughter the fatlings, but you don't feed the flock. The weak you have not strengthened, nor have you healed those who were sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back what was driven away, nor sought what was lost. With force and cruelty you have ruled them. And I think that speaks loudly to how God feels when he sees people operating in his name to shepherd his people turn to absolute taskmasters and vicious oppressors. And that in essence is what the cult experience really comes down to. God's seen it. He's certainly not blind to it all. And here we have an account of how he saw the shepherds of Israel, over 1,200 to 1,500 years ago. Actually longer. Let's see. 2020, almost 3,000 years ago. This is how old the scripture is.
Yeah.
And here he's seeing very clearly, I am against. He goes on to say, behold, I'm against the shepherds. I'm going to require my flock at their hands. I'm going to cause them to cease feeding the sheep, and the shepherds shall feed themselves no more. For I will deliver my flock from their mouths. The day is coming with people in Gladstone and other places in which I believe the power of God and his will show that he wants to see people rescued out of that place, and he wants to see them come to an understanding of his care and his desire. And part of that is not to turn you into a clone, not to make you a robot, not turn you into this victim where you're constantly being victimized by oppressive people who could potentially harm you. I mean, God's care is that loving. He's still the good shepherd of Psalm 23. He still wants to lead people. And I'm glad that his leading has apparently been upon you most strongly. I'm so glad that you've been there. So in closing, that's part of the scripture I want to share with anyone to consider. That is how we know there are people who I understand walk away from God and scripture, and I get that, but they're losing so much. There's so much to recover there and this is, I think, a verse that maybe speaks to what God wants to do in people's lives. He doesn't want to see people ever get under that kind of control again. That's definitely not against his will. In closing, Samantha, what we like to do is we usually give people who are on our interviews a chance to maybe speak for themselves and with a closing thought. And maybe there's people that might be listening at Gladstone. I'm sure that the elders and Zach and the rest of them are certainly going to be listening. I have no doubt in my mind that they've already been tracking and all that and doing all they can to, but perhaps there's, and they're beyond, you're beyond them. Okay. They can't touch you, but maybe there's people, maybe there's relationships, maybe there's some folks there that maybe you'd like to send a message to, or to our audience here, maybe just something you'd like to say as a closing thought that would help us really get a better perspective on what's going on and what you'd like to say. This is a purely personal time. I'm going to give you the floor for the last few minutes here.
Yeah, thank you. That, if there's anything I could say to anybody there, there's even specific individuals. Emily, I love you. You're my friend. I'm not the things that they said, and I hope that you can find life outside of there. And anybody that is listening, the people that are outside of community that are trying to do anything, it is because we love you guys and we want you guys to have a life in Christ that is good and full and isn't under control, and that can be had. I have a lot of people that I think of specifically that I love and I miss. I think about you guys all daily. And yeah, I hope that you guys don't see this as an act of trying to persecute and take down. That's not what we're doing. We are extending love, and we are showing you that there's more than what I think everyone's realizing there's happening. And yeah, I think that's all I could really say. We miss you guys. It's all out of love and care for you and for God.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you so very, very much, Samantha, for coming on today to share with us. And if there are others out there who would like perhaps to get more information about Gladstone, a website was just started. I'm happy to make an announcement of that now. It's called GladstoneExposed.com, and there's a link on there to get help. If you know, or someone you know is affected by Gladstone and you're looking for help, please don't hesitate to reach out. And the people behind this website are the very people you're talking about. They're wonderful, godly, precious people. They're not sinful rebellion. They're not in sinful rebellion. They're not these horrible monsters. They are people with consciences, people who love God. People who have found that you can love God and serve Him outside the womb of Gladstone, and that is something that they want to perhaps help you with. If you're struggling, if you have any questions, and maybe you just want to sound off, hey, give them a visit at GladstoneExposed.com. And if you'd like to also maybe get spiritual help, also from our own ministry, Spirit Watch Ministries, you can reach us at help@spiritwatch.org. That's an email box we monitor, and we've gotten that's been almost wore out the past few months from all the use we've gotten from many people who've been writing to us and wanting help and wanting to share, and we just want people to know. And I think, Samantha, you and I agree. We want people to know there's life beyond Gladstone. There's a big, beautiful life beyond it. And as the old saying goes, one's future is as bright as the promises of God. And He does make promises. There are specific things He means for us to live by, and therefore anyone that wants to take hold of them. Thank you once again, Samantha. And it's great having you on today. We hope to have you on real soon.
Yep. Thank you, Raphael. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening today as we explored just where are we going. Our prayer is that you have been encouraged and strengthened, and if necessary, challenged in your daily journey through life. Jesus is coming. You can fall with the night, or you can rise with the sun. The choice is yours. You can email us with questions and comments at feedback@spiritwatch.org. And if you need urgent personal spiritual help, email us at help@spiritwatch.org. We look forward to hearing from you. Please follow our podcasting at our Facebook page and our website at spiritwatch.org. This podcast is a production of Spirit Watch Ministries, taking heed that no man deceives you.